The following presentation was recorded live for the International Association of Square Dance Callers' 33rd Annual Convention. We take you live to the Renaissance Suites Hotel in Charlotte, North Carolina, where our session is just getting underway.
Good morning, everyone. I was hoping this would be a open forum of ideas to exchange ideas regarding recruitment, because I thought we would have an audience that would be able to do that, but apparently that's not going to happen because Lee and Barbie are here. So we should get the Sergeant-at-Arms in to keep things in order. This is a session on recruitment. Thank you all for coming, first off. I'm the moderator, and I'd like to introduce you to our panelists. To my far right is not Paul Walker. Paul unfortunately, is under the weather and wasn't able to be at the convention. So we've got the incredibly adequate talents of Mr. Mike Callahan from New York State. Mike is one of the top-notch callers in New York, or in the United States for that matter, and he's incredibly successful in recruiting. He's got a wonderful program going in the Rochester area of New York, and he's, besides that, a really great guy. And he'll share his stories with you, I'm sure. To my right is Tom Rudebock from Ohio, and Tom is a board member of CALLERLAB. He's been calling for probably longer than I am, and close though. Tom and Tom's experience in recruiting as well is well documented, and he's been our chief champion of the Winning Ways stories. If you've been to the website www.callerlab.org, there's a whole section there on winning ways, and Tom is truly the architect of putting that whole page together and collecting those stories. So if you have a chance outside this meeting to thank him for that, plus all the other work he does through his work on the RPM committees. This session is regarding marketing and recruitment, and it is the cornerstone of everything that we do. We would be no place if we didn't have people, and the people, our product is square dancing, and the people that buy it effectively are our dancers. We would have nothing to give if we didn't have people in the square dancing. It would be very quiet at our halls, with the exception of us yelling out the calls and no one moving. So it's all about recruitment and getting new people in the activity. That has been our focus for the last decade. We've explored and tried many different ways to recruit. There have been many failures, and the value in a failure is as important as the value of knowing how to be successful in recruiting. And if we are not successful in a recruitment campaign that you undertake, it's important to communicate that as well to, right now we have the PPI in CALLERLAB, and the PPI is a place where you can communicate your successes and your failures, because failures are as equally as important. The Winning Ways stories obviously generally are about organizations who have successful recruiting campaigns and successful programs. The communication of that information is equally as important through that little card that I mentioned this morning at the opening session. If you have a chance to send a Winning Ways story in, send it in there as well. I'm going to pass it immediately over to Tom and let these two guys go at it.
All right. Thank you, sir. I am not going to give you a lot of ideas to use. I'm going to try to look at some philosophical things, because what would work for me in Ohio may not necessarily work for you. And as Tim mentioned, I'm hoping that we can get some sharing of ideas that you can take back and modify or use change that will work in your area. As Tim mentioned, there are a lot of clubs out there that are having good successes. There are some that are struggling, and we've all seen them. And hopefully maybe we could sit back a little bit and observe what they're doing, even the ones that are struggling, and see what they're doing, that we can do something, see what their mistakes are, and maybe either help them or make our activity or our club grow. And as the theme of the convention, is thinking outside the box. And I think that's what we need to do when we're looking at ideas. Something new, something different. What we can do to stimulate those people who are not in our activity, that maybe have a problem with the dress code, which research has shown that that's part of it. Some of the research has shown that the people at Square Dance have big puffy hairdos, big frilly skirts, big belt buckles, and drive RVs. That come out of the research. So we have to change that image. And we have written, as far as the RPM committee, a marketing plan. It's still in its infancy. Our plans are over the next year to start to put things together that to implement that plan. But in the meantime, we still have to work in our own areas. The best recruiter is still the grassroots, meaning you and I, one-on-one, working with our people. And as I mentioned, some of the philosophical background things we need to be looking at. And I've got a handout that we'll give to you here. But one of the things we need to do is creative thinking. Stay positive, stay upbeat. Expressions like, it won't work. We tried that before. That's a dumb idea. Kill the thinking process quicker than any fire extinguisher or fire hose could extinguish a campfire. It's better to say, how can we build on that? Let's look at the best parts of that idea. We have to maintain a positive attitude as we work through this. Positive, filled with confidence, a good attitude, a feeling or mood. Enthusiasm. When you're working on a campaign to attract new dancers, if you have to send only one person out, get the most enthusiastic person in your group. Or to create the enthusiasm within your club, it might be a good idea to have a club meeting and go over some of these ideas and brainstorm. What's worked for us in the past, what hasn't worked for us, what can we change to make it work. You know, let's be positive. Don't say, well, that won't do it. We've tried it before. Let's move ahead with a positive idea. To develop a plan. How are we going to spread the word? What tools are we going to use? We're going to use news releases, demo handouts, cable TV, paid advertising, other avenues. Again, thinking outside the box. What can we do that is new, different, and will grab their attention? What's going to be our target group? Research has shown that the 50 to 55-year-olds should be our primary target. Those are the people, the empty nesters, the people that have left, their children have gone on to college, are not home. Maybe the spouses want to reconnect. This is a good activity for that. It's not saying we should forget about or eliminate the younger folks, but this should be, from research, our primary target. What's the image you want to project? Is your club or are you as individuals fun to be around? What's your dress code? I know some clubs that still, and some of clubs that have been around a while, still say when they go out to do a demo, it's got to be full dress. Research is also, as I mentioned earlier, that many people are turned off by our dress. I'll be the first to admit, I love to see it, but if we need to change to get new dancers, this is something we need to address. Do you welcome all ages, or are you going to be specific? Do you welcome singles? I know a few years back we had some young people come to a class I was teaching, and it was the era when their shoestrings were not tied. They were, laced up but not tied, and a little longer hair. And a couple of the older members says, we don't want them around. We lost some good potential. I think all these things we need to work on, teamwork within our club. As I mentioned earlier, one of the things that might be, and I would highly encourage it, is to have a club meeting and address all these things. One of the things I have seen work successfully is they bring a potluck or whatever, and they put a flip chart up and start listing all the ideas for recruitment. What can we do? All of them. No negatives. no care how outlandish it is. You know, maybe offer a trip to Hawaii or whatever, but you can always modify that to help in some way take all these ideas and appoint your officers or a group to go through and categorize those, and then pick the top 4 or 5 that you think might work in your area. I think one of the things going down the road and talking with people, we need to sell the benefits, not the features. You know, feature would be, well, it takes, in our typical lessons now, without going to the multi-cycle or the new programs that are being talked about, but we're talking a feature could be at 30 weeks. If they ask, we don't want to lie to them, but we need to sell the benefits. It's healthy, low-impact aerobics, fun. You meet new friends. Reasonable. Maybe too reasonable. Depending on your facility. Lighted parking lot. Smoke alcohol free. Drug free. It's a family activity. Casual dress. Again, we got to think outside that box. Some of the resources that are available, I mentioned a brainstorming session with club members. There are all kinds of ideas on the internet. Tim mentioned the Winning Ways success stories. These are stories that have been collected from clubs all across the United States that have had successes, and they're available on the website, and you can go read and maybe what that particular club had a success at won't work for you, or you don't see it working for you, but maybe you can pull an idea out of that one and modify it to make it work for your group. As we go forward, you know, what we're doing is human relations work. I come across, and I put it in your file, in your handout, the 10 Commandments of Human Relations. Speak to people, smile at people, call people by name, be friendly and helpful, be cordial, be genuinely interested in people, be generous with praise and cautious with criticism, be considerate of and with the feelings of others, be thoughtful of the opinions of others. You know, there are 3 sides to a controversy. You know, yours, the other fellow's, and the right one. Be alert to give service. Above all, when you're talking to people, smile. Smiles is the longest word in the English language. I don't know whether everybody knew that. There's a mile between each letter, the first and last letter. Think about that. One of the other things I come across in one of the magazines I was reading, which it wasn't a Square Dance magazine, is tune into the frequency. And again, this is in your flyer. It has to do with contacts. Many of us think we do make one contact and when we don't get the success we want, so we give up. Many times you're better off to make many contacts with one person and win, or one contact with many people, and your chance of success is the one with the many contacts with one person versus the one contact with many people. And when you're talking to people, you know, find out what they're wanting to do for a recreation or hobby. Don't maybe not go out and sell square dancing or whatever program you're talking about, be it the multi-cycle, the ABC, which we've talked about, the minimum or the short-term programs with a minimum number of basics. Find out what they're wanting in their recreation activity. You know, are they wanting something on a regular basis? Do they want something that both spouses can go to? Talk to them and see what they want, and then develop your sales pitch. And you have to do it on the fly, but develop your sales pitch around what they are suggesting to you. In the handout, I've given you several things I've come across. I'm not going to read them all word for word right now, but there's some suggestions and ideas that you can use as you go back to your club. And I hope that you would have a club meeting and talk about what you need to do internally to go out to externally attract more people.
Thank you, Tom. If it's all right with you, we'll just go on over to our next speaker, and then we'll get some questions at the end.
Thanks, Tim. I'm Mike Callahan. I'm from the Rochester, New York area. I have 2 very successful singles clubs. How many here call for a singles club? Anybody? Okay. Singles clubs are kind of a different type of people to recruit to. You notice when a couple comes, maybe one person doesn't really want to come to the open house. When you have a singles club, everybody that's there wants to be there. Okay, so singles don't really have too much of a problem recruiting. One of our singles clubs, they do a lot of demonstrations for other singles organizations like Parents Without Partners. During the summertime, a lot of these groups will have a picnic at a park, local park. They find out about this. They find out if they can come and do a demonstration at their picnic. We get quite a few people from those demonstrations. Okay. Last hour, we talked in here a lot about image. Okay, and image has a lot to do with recruiting, and Tom sort of alluded to that as far as the clothes and that is concerned. Also our music, all right? If you're going to do a demo for a young people's group, you want to use their type of music. You don't want to go in with the old traditional turkey in the straw type music. You want to do something that they can relate to. And music is the medium of our dance, and this is something that you really, if you're going to do demonstrations, see what type of audience you're going to have if you can, and have the caller use this type of music for that era. Okay, people relate a lot to music. The singles club I have in Buffalo, we got probably about 25 new people in the class this year. And what they do up there, there's a gentleman that all he does all year long is he writes articles about the club, and they put it in the local penny save or whatever. Okay, they don't just advertise in September. One of the things we alluded to last hour was you take a company like Nike. Do they advertise all year long? Of course they do. All right. Why then do we advertise just in September, and then all of a sudden nobody hears about the clubs anymore until the next September? The club in Buffalo I have, a gentleman writes articles. They put them in the local penny savers. New officers for the club, special dance they had. They're not asking for recruiting right now, but they keep the club in the vision of the public all year long. And this has really helped when it comes to recruiting in the fall. People have heard of the group. The group will go on a TV program, early morning TV program. This is something you'd be surprised how many people get up in the morning and watch TV while they're going to work. A lot of these local areas now will have a morning type interest program for the local area. And this club this year, they went on the local program. They had to get up at 4 in the morning. The program was on at 6 o'clock. They went to the hall. They had a caller. They demonstrated. They had the TV cameraman come out, and they did interviews. They had a lot. I think he said they had 7 people from their class because of this program. Okay, so this is something you might want to consider. Is the local TV programs, if you have something like that in your area, try to get on them in the morning. Be surprised how many people watch that early. All right. One of the couples clubs in our area has an interesting type of recruiting. They contact local non-for-profit organizations like Humane Society, local cable TV channel that's a public channel. A lot of these non-for-profit organizations have auctions every year for fundraisers. And this local club will say, we will put, as part of our presentation, we will put on a dance party for you to help you raise the funds. Okay. And last Saturday, they had one of these dance parties. It was for the Humane Society. We had 5 squares of new people come because they had bid on this auction, whole group of people. They wanted a party for their organization, and they had 5 squares of new people. We had a one-night type of thing. At these auctions, at these dances, they'll hand out a certificate for free lessons, 3 free lessons in the fall or when they start. they've gotten some people from that. So that's something completely, you know, when you think out of the box, that type of thing, this is something that I haven't heard any others doing that, all right, contacting the non-profit organizations. So again, you know, we got to think out of the box, as the convention states, to try to recruit people. Okay. When you do how many here do demonstrations? Okay. I still think those are some of the things that demonstrations don't all wear square dance clothes. Maybe have a few square dance clothes, a few nice jeans, business casual type of clothing. Have a mixture of dress, and I think this attracts a lot more people. This is probably about 5 years ago. One of our clubs used to do a demo in a mall, and you know, they do their demo. People would go out, try to get people from the audience to come in and join them. People were very reluctant to do that. One year they decided that we're going to wear nice jeans, business clothes, did the demo, went out, had no problem having people come up and join in for a tip, because I don't think the people felt threatened. A lot of times people are watching demos and they say, oh, they're professionals, you know, we'll never be able to do that type of thing, okay? So I think the image of the clothing is something that is really important when you're out doing a demonstration, all right? Other than that, what we'd like to do is maybe put the mic around some of the different, the folks around here. Does anybody have any good recruiting stories?
Anybody want to talk with us? We want to share ideas because, as we mentioned, we don't have all the answers. One of the things that I might, and he mentioned demos, etc. I have seen that, building on what you just said, that people see dancers in square dance attire doing a demo. They think that portray them as being professionals entertaining. So they're afraid to get in, where if you go out with casual clothing, you're more apt to be able to get somebody in. This is on tape, so tell us who you are, where you're from, and
Ron Counts, Colorado Springs. This convention theme of think outside the box would be great if any reasonable number of us are willing to climb outside that box. And I firmly believe that if a business is not willing to change its product, that its days in business are kind of limited. I got a magazine, well, it's really a catalog, and there was a picture in there of a little model truck. Coors Malted Milk. Had no idea. I thought Coors was a beer company. And it seems that during Prohibition, they legally couldn't sell beer, so they shifted their product to malted milk, and they survived until Prohibition was outlawed and we could sell beer again. Our list is too long. We make new people jump through too many hoops in order to join our clubs and dance with us. And to recruit for something like that and have a standard way up here, the first step, it doesn't make sense to me. We need to get it down so people can join, get rid of these dress codes, let them come in and blend with us. And the club dancers that we have now, if they are unwilling to bond with those new people that do come in, it's just a matter of time till you lose them. It's just like flossing your teeth. You only need to floss the ones you want to keep. Thank you.
Ron mentioned bonding, and this is so important. We have a club back in our area that's really struggling. I used to teach for them, but there's some things happen. But one of the things that I kept telling this club, we'd have our new dancer sessions. At the end of a tip, the angels sat here, the new dancers sat here. one night we had a club meeting, and I said, would you want to belong to this club? And everybody sat there with their mouth shut. Others. Betsy, did you have your hand up?
Betsy Gotta from New Jersey. Couple of things. One is, when we're talking about recruitment, you have to be ready for any opportunity. I was calling a dance in Albany, New York. I'm from New Jersey. And as I was calling the dance, it was probably his before. As I was calling the dance, I saw these young women coming in during the first tip, and they paid their money, and I'm going, boy, the singles group must have gotten some younger folks there. But when they got up to dance, it was obvious that they had not learned all of the vocabulary of the mainstream calls. In fact, they hadn't learned any of it, it turned out. They had thought this was an open dance. They made a mistake. So I went over to the lady who was talking to them, and I said, I know you folks take a long refreshment break. If these women want to stay, I found out, you know, they just made a mistake and they did not square dance, but they wanted to come out and try some. I said, if you guys take a long refreshment break, if these women want to stay till such and such a time, I'll be happy to do a beginner set for them. And we'll get them some partners and we can dance. I said, but I have to clear it with the club officers. It turned out that I was talking to the club president. But you know what her reaction was to my offer to do a beginner tip? It was, you do that? Because I was calling mainstream and plus alternating tips that night. She didn't conceive that I would be able to drop everything and call an introductory tip for these women. It turned out we did. They were really happy. They thought had met some of the friendliest people they'd ever gotten to know in their lives. And it turned out also that the singles club had their advertising flyers for the fall open houses with them that night. I heard that at least one of the young women came out to one of the open houses. I don't know any more. Some of the others probably didn't come because they had to go back to college. But their impression of us was such that maybe they'll be open to recruitment later. That's what I mean by taking advantage of every opportunity and thinking out of the box. Another point was I do a call for a group that does a Memorial Day parade. And this one parade last year, we're marching along, we dance whenever it breaks, and I'm not sure we're ever going to recruit anybody from there, but at least people know that there are some square dancers around. Well, it turned out we turned up one couple short of 2 squares. So we'd dance 1 square and people would rotate in and out. And then a couple of times I had the headset mic on, so I danced, and we danced with a Phantom and had danced 2 squares. Got near some friends of mine who danced with a club that I belonged to, who were probably in their 40s, and they were sitting there watching the parade with their kids. And I said, Tina and Ray, come on, and we need you in this square. So they stood up in their street clothes and danced. And then we marched on, and they went back and sat down on the curb. And they told me later, somebody said to them, you know how to do that, don't you? But it was somebody else in street clothes who just got up and danced. So maybe somebody would relate to it.
Thank you, Betsy. As we're talking about doing demos and that type of thing, I don't know how many times I've been out with a club and you know, get names and addresses or whatever, and they have no paper with them, they have no flyers, nothing to hand these people. You know, you got to give them something. And I think, personal, if you give them a small pocket type thing, such as a business card or a 3x5 card they can stick in their pocket rather than a big 8.5x11 flyer, it'll go home with them quicker because they can stick it in their pocket, stick it in their purse. The flyer may go in the nearest trash can.
Hi, my name is Chris Pinkham from Hillsborough, New Hampshire. And a year ago in Louisville, I presented a 12-point marketing and recruiting program to build clubs. And the whole premise is based on small projects that a few people can take from each grouping and use as a recruiting tool. And it's set up on an interest level. In other words, what are you interested in? Are you interested in something to do with newspapers, something to do with cable TV? I covered about 11 different points, but one of them I totally lifted from Mike because he suggested this a few years ago, and I think this is one of the things that you use for your singles group. And he uses he uses personal ads in some, everybody has like a newspaper in their area that has personal ads. And Mike, you told me that you used a personal ad to attract more singles for the singles group. And it can be worded in any different way that you want. But the point of it is that they're all small projects. They can be done by 1 or 2 people per project, and they're very simple. Anybody who's interested in a copy, I'll give you an email address, and I absolutely promise over the next week or so I will physically go into my office for the first time in months and look at the email and send someone a file if they're looking for it. But there's so many simple little short-term projects that can be done over the course of a year. And again, just because they're short-term doesn't mean they're done once a year. If I was selling shoes in September, I'd be in big trouble if I was trying to make a living that way. But I would be happy to send that out to people who are interested in it. A lot of it is blatant plagiarism, but a lot of it is, some of them are actually original ideas too. But I would be happy to send that out to folks, anybody that's interested in that program.
This ad, and I completely forgot about that, it's in the personal section of the newspaper where it says, apartments, wanted, stuff like that, and they'll put an ad for the singles club in there, and they won't mention anything about square dancing, come learn to dance, come learn, they might not even mention dancing, singles get together, such and such and such, but you'd be surprised how many people read those small ads in the paper, especially single people, okay, when they're looking for something to do. Another thing I wanted to tell you was a lot of times we get our people there for the first night, for the first lesson. They're having a ball, but we bombard them with so many things about lessons, about graduation, about how long it's going to take to learn to dance. And these people are brand new. They come there for the first time just for a night of entertainment. They don't want to hear about all that stuff. And I think some of our dancers are so enthusiastic about what they do is that they try to promote the lessons, how long it's going to take to learn. You got to learn plus, you got to do this, you got to do that. Those people don't want to hear that the first night. They just want to come and have a good time and dance. We can gradually do that maybe later on when we got them hooked. But the first few weeks, we don't have them hooked. They're there, they might have a good time, they might not. But it takes at least 5 or 6 weeks or so to really get them hooked, I think, Tom.
We need to sell the benefits, not the features.
Helen McConnell from Hendersonville, North Carolina. One year we were very successful and we got a huge article in our newspaper. I mean, I'm talking New York Times size page. And one part of it was one of our members talked about being a new dancer and how he was scared in the beginning and got to how much he loves it now. And we approached the newspaper the following year to see if we could get another article in. And the newspaper said, oh, there's nothing new. We're not going to do it. Well, a couple weeks after that, we read an article that they had picked up from the AP Wire on square dancing from another club down near the beach in North Carolina. So even though we couldn't get something in, they did run another article about this tiny little square dance club and how much fun they had. So get something in the paper. Somebody else may also benefit from that. A lot of our members saw that, and a lot of other members saw that article and wanted to know why we didn't have an article in the paper that year.
I think it goes back to what somebody mentioned about having something in the paper continuously. We don't advertise once a year. Even if it's just that your club decided to do a cleanup day on Route 66 for the first 2 miles outside of town. Write a news release. Keep that stuff going to the paper, and the editors look for continuous activity. You may not get a story this time, but maybe the next time you will get something. And if you have a human interest story, maybe it's something that one of your club members did that has no relation to square dancing, but tie into that story that they are active in the XYZ Square Dance Club. get that thing out there as much as you can. I had the privilege of attending the seminar at Portland last year, and one of the things one of the public relations firm looked at articles and papers. I don't know the exact number. It was better than 50% of the mention of square dancing was in the obituaries. They belonged to this club, but it didn't tell about the other activities that was going on in square dancing. Somebody else have?
Mike's talk about the personal ads leads me to a story that I'm sure some of you have heard, and I apologize to those of you who've heard this before. We used to have a club that was on the Rutgers University campus in New Jersey. It's now not on the campus, it's still dancing. But at the university, of course, we got a lot more ladies or girls coming out than we did gentlemen or men. And our club president one year took an ad in the school newspaper which said, "Guys, want to learn 68 moves on 4 women at a time? Come for free introductory lesson." Well, they came out in droves. And you know, enough of them enjoyed the activity that we had extra men for the next 1.5 to 2 years.
Thinking outside the box. Anybody else have some success stories they want to share with us? You know, I think we can all take these back and build on them, you know, for our own area.
Well, this ain't a success story. My name's Bob Asp. I'm from Illinois. This ain't a success story. It's something not to do. I teach First Singles Club also in McHenry, Illinois. And the first night, we had probably 15 women in their 40s, in their 30s. And I don't teach Yellow Rock the first 5 lessons, because when you come in there and you're a young lady and you see this guy coming at you and 60 years old and wanting to give you Yellow Rock, the horror on their faces. I ended up with 4 out of the 15 coming back, and that's just one thing. I mean, you know, it's okay to go greet them, and shake their hand and say welcome and that stuff, and then work into the Yellow Rocks later, you know, and that stuff. So that was my one don't do.
Jim Weber from Liberty, Missouri. Met with the school district. It's a Liberty Public School District. Every school district has their community education program, something like this they pass out. We talked to them, and they now put in square dancing. Square dancing and line dancing is what's in this one. There's a fee. It's paid to the school district. The school district pays the caller. This advertisement about square dancing goes to 58,000 homes in the Liberty School District. Can't ask for any better advertising. I left a couple up on the table up there of these. Go talk to your school district. Say, what can you do something for us? You know, these are there. Another have lessons, and he went to the local Hy-Vee store. The local Hy-Vee store has a deli and a place to sit and eat. They cleared back the tables and one end of it, and they started having lessons. They had 30-some people for the first set of lessons. Of course, people come by, hear the music, they look, they see people in regular clothes, not all square dance clothes. It would be the exception to have somebody in square dance attire. The second, and of course they was advertising their next set of lessons, and that would be there at the same store. It was all set up to have more than one. They had 60-some the second set of lessons. People seen. When we have our lessons, most of the time where we're at, we're hid someplace. Nobody else sees us. It was something that he thought of to use. The lessons are there. People are shopping. They hear it. The next set of lessons, they're interested. They come back. It happened.
One of the things that's been mentioned about not using necessarily square dancing per se, and one of the things I've heard discussed here at the convention is, instead of square dancing, team dancing.
Chuck Hicks, High Point, North Carolina. this is one of our this happened to one of our neighboring clubs in another town, Winston-Salem, but they put a full-page ad in the local newspaper, and then they also got with the newspaper to run a little feature on square dancing. And when they had their open house, they had something like 60 people, and they've got 3 squares in their class right now. So, you know, those are some things that help. Just trying to get free sometimes ain't going to get you anything.
True. And talking about the ads, you know, news stories is free publicity.
I'm Hall Gross from Asheville. One thing that we have found so far have been successful is that our local university, University of North Carolina at Asheville, has a continuing education program. And if you'll check with your local colleges, you'll be surprised how many of them have continuing education programs, and they'll do all the work for you. All you do is just go teach.
Any other comments, suggestions, helps, aids?
Those who are interested in calling in schools, we're going to have a session tomorrow afternoon on calling in school programs. And this is another area of, you might not recruit kids right away, but if you can give them a good image of square dancing in the schools, they'll remember that later on. So many people I talk to, you know, when you're trying to recruit people, oh, I had it in elementary school, I had it in high school, oh, it was awful, you know, and they remember the image of square dancing from the schools. But if you can give the kids a good image of square dancing in the schools through your use of music, through a high energy type of program, they'll remember that in later years. So anybody that's interested tomorrow in calling in schools, make sure you attend our session tomorrow afternoon.
I can go back reiterating some of the things I mentioned earlier. I think, number one, we need to change our image. Research has shown this. We need to do everything we can to you know, change that image with what people are thinking about us. If going to the schools, if you take if Mike needed some help, if he took his 70 and 80-year-old dancers, he's not going to do very well. But if he can, and I know the younger people are working, but if he can get even some high school kids that maybe could help him out, or if you go to do a demo, if at all possible, and he mentioned it, just to hit on it again, use music for that group, your casual attire, something that will fit in with them, that particular group. And I've had dancers in our area say, you know, we don't get anything out of demos. My answer to them is, we're planting seeds. We may not harvest it that day. It may be 4 or 5 years down the road till we make that harvest, but we are planting seeds. And every time we do a demo, we are fertilizing that seed.
Ron Counts, Colorado Springs. Several years ago, I bought a digital camera that was the best piece of square dance equipment I have ever bought. It's put more dollars in my pocket. When I am working the floor, Kit shoots pictures. When Kit is working the floor, I shoot pictures. We did a party at a local high school, and we took a long limbo bar. And there was a mother and her teenage daughter challenged her to see who could win under the limbo bar. The mother won. I always send 2 CDs back to whoever the organizer of the event is, and it pays off. We put together a publicity book. It's in a 1/2-inch binder, and when we get a call about a booking, if there's any negotiation over price or which caller in the area is going to do the dance, I ask if I can drop the book off. Or if you have website capability, would you like to go to my website? And generally, the next time we talk, I've got the booking on it. This thing is loaded with pictures. The website is loaded with pictures, and it's a silent salesperson, and we need more salespeople rather than more marketing people.
I'm Sarah Pergrassi from Trenton, Florida, and we have a new club we've just started. But we were contacted from a demo. A high school teacher contacted us, and she knew that she wanted her high school kids to get involved in square dancing. And so we're in the process right now of setting up an after-school club. We'll be right up there with Key Club and everybody else at their high school starting in August when school starts up. And she already has 4 squares of teenagers who are excited about joining this club. So we'll be meeting in the afternoons, but our goal also, in addition, is to their parents have to come fetch them because it's a rural community. They don't drive by themselves. So their parents will have to come fetch them, and we're hoping that their parents and their family members will get excited, and some other organization will come off of it.
I'm Ken Dishford from Nashville, Tennessee, Tornado Alley lately. What we have in the, I'm also the area association, Callers Association president. I spent a lot of time with the area association membership, and I also spent a lot of time promoting what we have here in CALLERLAB. And one of the things is we found out that most of the people, club officers and presidents, have no idea what we callers can do. And one of the things we try to do, each year I present a seminar. I get every officer from all the clubs in the area, and they attend a seminar that I put on, and I have 2 other callers that help me. And we work on recruitment, and we try to present it to the situation that is not a once-a-year situation. It begins in January, goes right on through December, and starts over again, like you folks have already talked about before. It's a constant program, and it's an ever-evolving program, and you have to change and change. And through this program, we have been able to change the club officers' concept on how to recruit, and it's helped quite a bit. The area has grown at least by 25% in the last 2 years, and we're slowly growing piece at a time. And the thing with it is, if there's only 2 people at a time, that's at least 2. And they grow on the next 2, and you continue on up until you really have a decent program. So we have run, I think where we as callers have to be involved with, we have to be involved more with the officers of our own club and also the officers of our area associations. We are the educators, and we have to promote that. Thank you.
Anybody else have any thoughts, ideas, suggestions? Reinforcement to what we might have just said? I know Mike well enough. He wants to say something. He's rubbing his chin, didn't even hold his hand up.
Thanks, Tom. I'm Mike Hogan from Omaha, actually La Vista suburb. And I love what these guys are saying. Yeah, we talked about some of that this morning. Excuse me. So I'm not going to talk about all that stuff. I want to tell you about what we've just started in Omaha. And I can't call it a success story yet because really we're right at the point where the rubber meets the road, okay? Last year, Tom talked about some marketing things that we did, and we wrote a marketing plan, which probably needs to be modified slightly. I've got a couple of new ideas, and I know a lot about that kind of thing, but we got together in Omaha and did the same kind of thing. We just finished it, actually, if you want to call it finished. And I used the Omaha Area Square Dance Callers and Cuers Association and the Omaha Area Square Dance Council. So I had the dancer organization and the caller organization, and we convened a committee that had about 35 or 40 dancers, callers, cuers on that committee to write a marketing plan for Omaha. And we followed a marketing strategy model that I use with my clients to build the plan. We picked out what age group we wanted to target with our plan, and all of those things. We've gone all the way down through it and have developed the tactics that we want to use. And I'll just share with you what we've done at that point, because Tom, this kind of is it's different than what we ended up last year with the CALLERLAB thing. Yet it still kind of parallels it. We're building a website. The thing that I love about websites are that websites are a place where people can go to learn, and they don't have to be they don't have to feel funny about that. I think sometimes people would like to know more about square dancing, but they're afraid that their buddy in the cube next to them at work is going to think they're strange because they want to square dance, okay? So one of the ideas that we developed through the marketing plan for CALLERLAB that they've also adopted is the idea of building a website, and that website's going to have a couple of different areas on it, okay? One of those areas is really going to be about educating non-dancers about square dancing. Both of these guys have talked about selling the benefits, okay? Well, that really is it. If we're trying to change the image, and if we are open to have other dance attire, for example, other than the poofy square dance dress, we're going to have a section on that website that talks about what the attire is in square dancing today. So it'll talk about some historical stuff. It'll talk about what the traditional square dance dress is today. It'll talk about prairie skirts. It'll talk about what guys wear, and it'll also talk about, hey, you can wear a nice pair of jeans or business casual type attire. That there's a lot of different options. We wanted to talk about the music because the non-dancing public thinks that we just play turkey in the straw stuff. Okay, so we want to put a section on there that will have that's all about music, where you can actually click on MP3 cuts and you can hear pieces of music. So when you go to the music section, what kind of music do we dance to? It'll have classic country cuts. It'll have classic rock cuts. It'll have different types of pattern music. It'll have some real modern music, so that people can educate themselves about a lot of different things and open their eyes to it. Now, that only works if we tell people about it. So as we build other ways of reaching people to tell them about square dancing, we have to make sure that the address for that website is on everything that we do that goes out to the public. Every business today has a big old website that talks all about their products and their services and lets you learn more about their business and why you might want to do business with them. And that's what we see that website as. So we've built it into 3 subcommittees. One subcommittee is going to do all of the computer stuff. They're going to build the website, which it's already in progress. They're also going to help our dancers understand how to just to put something about square dancing on their signature line for their email. Well, you have a signature when you send an email out. I do some work from home sometimes, and it's amazing how many of my clients call me back and go, "You're a square dance caller? I didn't even know that was going on." So we're doing that part of it. Then there's a couple of other computer-related things. So I got a computer guru. I don't get computers very well, so I got a computer guru in our group, and he's building the website and he's helping develop all of that part of it. Okay, that's his job. I've got another committee that is the supplemental committee. They're the ones that are going to take the photos. They're the ones that are going to seek out the stories, so that when you go to the website, if you want to learn about the social side of square dancing, which is one of those great benefits, it's going to have the story of the couple that met 20 years ago on the square dance floor and are now married today. Or actually, I guess Denise and I met about 27 or 28 years ago or something like that. It's going to have the story about 2 couples that have lifelong friendships because of square dancing. So it'll have all of some really cool photos and information that they can find out about. Now, they're also going to start working on the creation of a brochure that will have a lot of that type of information in it, and a number of other items like that. So they're kind of our collateral piece subcommittee, if you will. And then the third subcommittee is our personal selling subcommittee. And you guys talked about calling a school and trying to get into a school to do a demo, or trying to get into this place or that place. And that subcommittee's responsibility is to be our sales force. That's the sales force that goes to the local 24-hour fitness club and says, hey, you guys are all about fitness, right? And clearly you're going to have some folks, we're targeting kind of that empty nester baby boomer group as well. So here's something that's a little different that maybe we could team up with, because your business is all about providing the activities for people. Well, we have the activity. We just need that. We need somebody to help us get it to the people, and it fits exactly what you do. So I've got a different subcommittee that's going to be talking to the park and recreation departments, that's going to be talking to the health clubs, that's going to go talk to I'm not sure what group for sure, but let's say the Omaha Chiropractor Association, about the health benefits of square dancing. And if they get it, then maybe they'll put our brochures in their offices and give them to their clients. Now, you might think more positively about square dancing if your doctor hands you a brochure about square dancing and says, you ought to think about something like this. This would be really good for you. Okay? So we've got a different committee that's starting to do all of that outreach type stuff. And as I said, I can't call it a success story yet because we're in the developmental stage, but we've gone past, here's the idea, to actually we are now starting to do all of those kinds of things. So hopefully next year I can tell you about some of the results that we've seen so far. I encourage all of you, I mean, you guys are all here and you want to know more. I encourage you to work with your caller or your callers association, your dance club, most of your callers probably, so work with your dance club and start thinking about not just what we should do something, but let's sit down and build a plan that we can work on for the next year and really define some specific tactics that you want to take advantage of and assign those responsibilities. If you do that, then you know, we take it to the next step. So I just wanted to share with you what we're doing in Omaha, and hopefully next year we can tell you some great stories from it.
Thanks, Mike. Our federation also has a website that they developed last year. And Betsy brought up a good point last hour about how when you hand out flyers, flyers are tended to be thrown out. But our federation came up with business cards, and it has the website, the address, and also a mailing address, a contact phone number on it. So when I do a one-night type group, I'll have a bunch of these with me, because invariably if somebody come up and say, gee, this was a lot of fun, how can I do some more of this stuff? I'll hand them the card. And it has the website on it, it has a phone number on it. On the website, each club is listed, who to contact, where they dance, and so forth. So business cards, you know, people put in their pocket pretty much. They won't throw them out, and then they'll get home and, oh, it's just, you know, and they'll look at it. A flyer, as soon as they get home, it's usually gone, okay? But you might want to think about these business cards.
Building on a little bit of what Mike said, and Mike Hogan is the Vice President of CALLERLAB's RPM Committee. He did not tell you this. His career is in marketing, which is a big asset. Which leads me where I wanted to go is take inventory of the resources within your club. Mike has a marketing background, but he don't care for computers. So, but you may have somebody in your club that is great with computers. Maybe you have somebody in there in your club, a dancer, that is a super salesman. Maybe this individual's an idea person, but don't know how to get it all pulled together. So you take what they have to offer, and this committee type thing, which Mike is mentioning, take an inventory of the abilities and the backgrounds of your club members and make use of them. Don't just say one or two people do it. You know, get your idea people, get your sales people, get your computer people. Bring it all together. You know, it's not going to happen overnight. I wish we could all, and all of us wish that, but it will not happen overnight. But this is the process you need to go through to make it work. Other thoughts, ideas? Our fearless leader just came back.
Sorry. I'm a busy guy. I just tell you, just a couple of ideas that, practical ideas that I saw that worked really, really well
in my travels around the world. One of them was, it was labor intensive, but it was very effective. There's we look for a category of people. This club had determined that a category of people that they were looking for were empty nesters, maybe not quite retired yet from work, but perhaps in their 50s. So they determined that people that were in their 50s, the best way to identify those people would be that they're probably celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary. So what they did was they went to the newspaper every day and they looked up in the announcement section anybody who was celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary. Then they took the name, so it was, you know, Bob and Joan Cartwright are pleased to announce the 25th wedding anniversary. And then they write down Cartwright, and then they go to the telephone book for their geographical area, and they'd find 25 Cartwrights or 10 Cartwrights. And they write them all a letter. Said, congratulations on your 25th wedding anniversary. And one couple would call back and say, well, thank you very much, that's awful nice. And on the back of the letter, they would say, congratulations on your 25th wedding anniversary from the Dos-a-Dos Square Dance Club. Our members, you know, wish you well. And on the back was a list of all the members, just their names. So then they'd get the phone call from the actual Cartwrights who were celebrating their 25th and said, geez, that was awful nice, thanks very much. You know, and they say, well, we were wondering if you'd like to join our club. And sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't. But 24 other people would call them and say, you've got the wrong Cartwright. And they'd say, well, you're thinking you'd like to join our Square Dance Club. And they actually got people to join their Square Dance Club every single year. And so they would get, the story was that they were getting upwards of 10 squares of new people with this program that they were running. And now not all in September either. Whenever they had enough people that said, yeah, you know, maybe we'd join that, they'd start a new class. And they found a way to make that work. But it was very successful and very ingenious. It hit their target because most people who were celebrating their 25th probably got married in their 20s, which would put them in their 47, 50-year-old category, and they were successful doing that. And it was actually, they were telling me the story about how it worked, and it was quite comical, some of the responses they would get from people. They would get people calling in saying, you know, no, I'm not, that was my parents that you wrote the letter to, and they say, well, you should tell them that they should join square dancing. And then the kids would call the parents and say, you should join square dancing. These people wrote you a nice letter. And to follow that all the way through, I checked with them later in life, and the program collapsed. And interestingly enough, it collapsed because it was so labor intensive. It's a hard thing to do. And they got to a point where they had brought in over 3 years something like 20 squares of new people. They had got through the class, and they determined at that point that they did all right, and they decided that they don't need to do it anymore. And then it collapsed into a nosedive. So a commitment to the program, no matter what recruiting program you work, especially if you have one that works, you really got to find a way to stay at it as well. And you can't let it go away. Another one that I heard about that I thought was really interesting, I'm not really sure of the success on it, was an organization, the police law enforcement agencies have apparently one of the highest divorce rates of any employment category. So what do we have in our activities? A couple-based social activity. So the police associations were looking for people or organizations that would be able to, that they could put their police association as part of to promote togetherness and sociability, rather than the police associations had a bar and everybody go to the bar and drink. And you know, they had an alcoholism problem, and they had a problem with divorce. So square dancing is a non-alcoholic, very social, couple-based activity. And so they made a pitch to the local police association, and they started a square dance club. And pretty much everybody joined. And they said they said it was working well. And again, I don't know actually where it ultimately went to. Currently, in my real life, in my real business, I just hired a marketing firm. And the marketing firm came to me, and I'm talking about getting new customers. How do I get new customers? How do I get people to contact my company? And how do I get recognition in the marketplace? And I heard Mike talking briefly, so I know he talked about branding. Didn't you? Okay, last hour. and how important that is to always have your brand out in front of people. One of the things that this marketing firm has told me to do, or advised that I should do, is to run a charity event. Not an event. It's an event, not an event like we wouldn't run a square dance for all of we square dancers to come to and raise money for cancer research. Instead, you go to the Cancer Research Foundation and say, hey, we got, I'm a square dance caller, or our square dance club would be prepared to work with you to run an event to raise money for cancer. We'd like to have a jamboree, not a square dance, not a square dance like we would expect square dancers to come to and pay $5 to go to, but like they would run a charity golf tournament, or like they would run a lottery, like they would run any car rally event, they would run a jamboree, a square dance. I'm sure that most of you have been contacted by a non-dancer group at one time or another to do exactly that type of an event at a university or at a hospital or a church group. It's exactly the same thing, except that in this case, we are in control of that. We actually go to the Cancer Research Foundation and give them the idea that they should use square dancing as one of their fundraising events, and we would go to that as callers and participate in that. It's a great opportunity to put the activity right in front of people for a good cause. It's cause marketing is basically what it is, and it's passive. We're not actually necessarily trying to recruit them at that point, but I'll guarantee you they'll have a great time at the event. And really sometimes that's all it takes, is the exposure, is to get people to see square dancing so that they can enjoy themselves and seek it someplace else if they need to. And that becomes the problem then after that is when they go looking for it. If we keep it too well hidden, all of our recruitment efforts are going to fall by the wayside because there's absolutely no way that they can find it. And if they do find it, chances are that they won't be able to join in the next 48 hours. Instead, the only time that they'll be able to join is in September, and only for those 3 weeks in September. And if they should miss one of the weeks after that, chances are they won't be able to come back. So we have an issue with respect to that as well. The product that we have has to be able to support the recruiting program that we run. So, and they have to be linked. Otherwise, you fall into a situation where all your efforts go for naught. You could get as many people as you want to come out to a square dance. If there's no place for them to go after that, if they go looking, then it's all for naught. Is there any questions? Oh, Mike. Do you want me to run it? Mike Hogan?
I just wanted to, when I mentioned the website thing, the other element of our website is the part that says what's a beginner dance, what's an exhibition, how do I contact somebody to do a beginner dance, how do I contact somebody to do an exhibition, what are different lesson programs that are available and where they're available, information like that. I wanted to tell you that, and I also want to tell you on your philanthropic causes. If you go to contact one of these organizations to do a demonstration for them, we all support a lot of different charities, and we all know that the one that we all know the one that you support is the best, right? I mean, there's so many of them out there, and we all have some allegiances to certain charitable organizations. One of the things you might want to consider is if there's somehow that we can get square dancing associated with the organization that you're supporting, that it becomes a benefit back to us as well. And an example that I can use is, and I don't know all of the details, but I know in Minnesota does a fundraising dance, or has at least in the years gone by, for the American Heart Association. So if you approach the American Heart Association and you can put on a philanthropic type of event, raise some money for them, but in exchange for that, not only do you get all of the promotion that they do, so you don't have to pay for all that promotion, and you reach all of those people that are associated with that activity. In that process, you're also saying, oh, by the way, square dancing is really good for your heart. And if you can make it happen, you can actually get the endorsement of an organization like that says, the American Heart Association says, square dancing is good for you. Now you've got some really good marketing material that you can use that talks again about the benefits of the activity. So when you go talk to that philanthropic organization, see if you can somehow work that in to where it's a win all the way around.
There's another. Have you heard of Hoedowns for Habitat? That's another exceptional example of Johnny Preston, I believe, is behind it, and he's running these events that are meant for non-dancers, essentially. And by all accounts, he's having great success with non-dancers attending these events. People will come to an event like that. If you ran an open house at your club, it's self-serving, and you may get no interest, or lately we've been getting 2 or 3 people. But at these events that John's running, that has a cause associated with it, he's getting large crowds by comparison. 10, 15 squares of people that would come to a dance that are non-dancers. I mean, that's ideal, absolutely ideal. And it's kind of like a reverse method, I guess, if you will. His goal is to raise money for the Habitat for Humanity. That's his goal. Passively, though, he'll admit that he's introducing people to modern square dancing, and it works, and it really does work. Those people do, in fact, get exposed to it, and if they do seek square dancing beyond it, so far, from what he tells me, they've been fairly successful in finding it.
Ruth Edison from New Jersey. My partner is a caller, and we have open house. We'll have 3 open houses. After that, we say, somebody will say, well, we're not going to have any more. However, people will call up and say, is it okay if we come? So somebody will say, sure, come on in. So we'll go in for 2 or 3 weeks at 7 o'clock, earlier than our 7:30 actual class, and we'll catch them up. We'll say, if you'd like to come in early, we'll be more than happy to have you. And they come in. And we've really got our membership up now.
Helen McConnell again. Along the line of the Habitat for Humanity, our local Habitat organization just bought about 60 acres, and they're going to be putting up lots of houses. So every organization in town has been approached about doing one Saturday a month, putting up the framing on a house, and they're calling it a Blitz Day. And so our club elected to do one of the Blitz houses, and we anticipate that we'll get lots of publicity out of that. In North Carolina, the North Carolina charity is hospice, and every local area runs a hospice dance, and we get a lot of publicity out of that, both for the dance itself, and then later on, when all the money is tallied up, we get another article in the paper with regard to that. And people are amazed that we are involved in charity work. We also have adopted a school in our local area, and we have a back-to-school night where everybody who comes is asked to bring school supplies, because this is a school that has a lot of poor children in it, and we get even more publicity out of that. So that's another way of keeping ourselves, other than the September thing, before the public.
This just adds to some of the discussion earlier about keeping our square dance activity, or our clubs in particular, out in front of people, not necessarily just promoting and writing stories about our club dances, but our non-dance activities, which keeps that club name out there, and also lets people know that, yeah, we do other things besides square dance. Anything else?
I was going to have Tim talk about this, because he actually did it, but we did the Waska Festival near Washington, D.C. this past March, and they actually had, how many hours? A couple hours? Where new people could come in and dance. They promoted among the community. How many people did you have, Tim? Do you remember when you did that?
5 squares.
5 squares of new people showed up for this new dancer hour or 2 hours, whatever it was, and some of the staff callers went down to the hall and called for them. Okay, so that was kind of a neat way to promote. If you ever run a festival or anything like that, try that one time. Have a hall for brand new dancers, and have some of the festival callers come down and call for them. Anybody else have anything?
As moderator, then we can get ready to go to the cocktail party. Is there one? And but before you go, I'm supposed to ask you if you felt that this was worthwhile and you think we should do it again. If you think we should run this at next convention, just give me a show of hands so I can put it there every year. Great. Well, a nice hand for Mike Callahan and Tom Rudebock, and thank you all for coming, and enjoy the rest of the convention.
Not a nice hand for our busy moderator.
Jim Crawford.